Hello, everyone. My name is Caesar. Welcome back to the Save Point. Um, it's been a long time since we last met, and as you can see, we can only virtually meet here due to COVID. Anyway, we hope you are in great health and stay safe, please. Today's topic, we're going to talk about the 2018 Game of the Year, God of War, developed by the Santa Monica Studio. And the guest we have here today, Michael Lee, who happens to be a gamer with deep understanding of the game God of War series. We have him with us today to discuss this game with us while staying in the quarantine. So welcome, Michael.
Hi, thanks for having me. It is a pleasure to be here on the Save Point, Caesar.
Yeah. Hey, Michael. Glad we have you here. So could you briefly tell us your history of playing this God of War series game?
Oof, this is actually a story that goes back to
Mm-hmm.
middle school was when I picked up the first God of War. But this specific iteration, I actually got the game the week it released back in 2018. But due to I moved around a bit at the time. I had to put it down, and I wasn't able to pick it back up until literally like a few months ago, like toward the end of fall quarter, and I was using that to blow off steam in the middle of finals.
Are you afraid of spoilers since this game is released in 2018 and it's already 3 years later?
Gosh, I really hope not. If you haven't, audience members, if you haven't played this game yet, you're missing out. You should definitely pick it up. And if you don't know anything about God of War, well, you're about to learn because we're about to go over the entire story, and this is going to be filled with spoilers.
Yeah, wait and see. Spoiler alert. So, Michael, you as an expert of this God of War series game, so how would you describe this new God of War game? What do you think is the breakthrough or the main change comparing with the previous versions?
So I've been playing God of War since the first one came out in like the early 2000s. First one I picked up was on the PlayStation when I was in middle school, and in the original trilogy, the story follows Kratos, who is
Mhm.
still the main character. Kratos is this insanely powerful Spartan warrior,
Yeah.
and if we know anything about Spartans, these guys are absolute badasses on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And so what happens is he's in the middle of this very tough battle against barbarians, and he calls upon Ares, the Greek god of war, for aid. So Ares helps him, but in order to control his life that much more, Ares tricks Kratos into murdering his own wife and daughter. And
Mhm.
this was the subject of God of War 1. So having realized this, Kratos, well, one, he's traumatized. He sees the bodies of his own wife and daughter in front of him, and then he just vows revenge against Ares and eventually the entire pantheon of Olympus.
Yeah.
The story
Somehow,
goes
like,
on.
yeah, we have no idea, like, how this character from Greek mythology somehow ended up in there and with a son. I mean, like, that's what makes this character appealing. Like, he has a past, and he has a past that he doesn't want his son to know from, which means like we are gonna know from playing this character. We players gonna play as Kratos as his son, gradually realizing like what his father has done in his past. Yeah.
Yeah, and just going through the new game has a lot of callbacks to the old one as well. Because in the original trilogy, it's literally, I mean, imagine the most vicious monsters in the entirety of Greek mythology. You have things like the Hydra, the Kraken, what else? Basilisks, minotaurs. Kratos has seen it all, and Kratos has killed it all.
Yeah.
So there are moments in the new game where Atreus, his son, is unaware of just the amount of struggle his father has gone through in the past, and he winds up asking questions. So in the new game, in the new God of War game, there is a section where Kratos and Atreus encounter a dragon. Whoop de doo, it's a dragon.
Yeah.
Anybody who's played the old games knows that Kratos has killed things far more dangerous than this. But Atreus, this is like the biggest thing he is, the biggest monster that the son Atreus has ever encountered. So Atreus winds up asking something like this, which we'll see in this clip that we're about to play.
Can you kill something that big?
If we can catch it off.
That was
Yeah, so you
hilarious.
yep. So yeah, can you really kill something that big?
Mm,
Oh, I
yeah.
don't know, son. Let me
Mm,
just remember.
yeah, maybe you tell me. Like, yeah. Be like, yeah, that was kind of like right before out of those previous versions of God of War, our Kratos fights alone. But like in this time, like he and his son fight side by side, which is kind of like a similar stereotypical model from the a game developed by Naughty Dog, the Last of Us. So in which the Joe and Ellie play side by side, and the AI character kind of like illustrator of the story, but also a cooperator while you are in combat. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like these two games, these are both PlayStation exclusives as well. The Last of Us, developed by Naughty Dog. So if you haven't played either of these games, literally buying a PlayStation 4 would be worth it just to play these two. And I cannot recommend these two enough. And what's unique about both of them is that the developers, these story writers, they really make the audience feel connected to the emotions, to the reasons why these characters are doing what they do. And you are having genuine emotional connections to these fictional characters that you're able, me as the player, I'm able to live vicariously through these guys, simply because I'm controlling their actions on screen. However, what's unique about God of War, though, as opposed to The Last of Us, is Atreus, this sort of secondary character. This is one of the only games where essentially the player controls two characters at once. There is player interface that controls what the actions that the boy is able to take. For example, you're in the middle of a tough fight. Your Kratos is swinging his axe, and you're controlling Kratos swinging that axe, and he says, "Boy, shoot this monster," and you're actually pushing buttons to make the boy shoot this thing that you want, and eventually. If once you upgrade a trace enough, he sometimes becomes more powerful than Kratos himself.
Yeah, and
Versus,
sometimes like this technique
yeah,
is used by Santa Monica Studio as a way to depict those characters, to fulfill their image as well. Like when Atreus believes that he was human, but instead it turns out as the story progressed, he realized that he was a god as well. And that during that time, the several combat, while he was in this phase, like he would disobey his father. He would choose to be independent. He would choose to fire whatever arrow I want to do. I would choose to fight this one alone instead of um, following your command, let's say. So yeah, which is a unforeseen way of telling the story, which is really something that I admire of. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Like this just goes to show the level of creativity that the developers had to really illustrate that point in his life of Atreus making a huge discovery about himself and growing into this young man who may rebel because at this point the AI will actually run independently of the player input, and this really feels like, oh, my little boy's going through puberty and he's not listening to me anymore. So yeah, that and honestly, but at the end of the day, it's like at the end of the story, all that matters is Atreus, Kratos, and that sense of family we've built
Yeah.
throughout this game. And honestly, I can't wait for the sequel.
Yeah, definitely. It was kind of like a lesson that we learned that we have been through out of the past. We have killed so many gods, and we learned something from them. Is that we don't want to be one of them. Like we can be ourselves. We try to avoid all of the mistakes. Yeah, I think is that is the marvelous part about it. A game being more than a game. So I hope all the audience enjoy the content of today. This is the Save Point, and we introduce you, Michael Lee, as our guest today. So we'll see you guys